there's like the long and then there's a short version of my story. I'm going to try to keep it kind of semi-short. So I'm a American Ukrainian, meaning I'm a American citizen. America adopted me as a country. This is the country I fight for. However, I'm a third generation immigrant, and serendipity, what have you, it turned out that I actually was born there, and I grew up there till I was 15 and a half, and then I stumbled into you, unfortunately, in high school. But yeah, so I lived most of my life up until 15 and a half. I was spent in Ukraine, two years in London, like a year and a half in Sterling, Virginia. But other than that, for the most part, I grew up a Ukrainian kid, a weird Ukrainian kid wearing jorts to soccer practice, you know. Actually, yeah, I was born like less than a year before the fall of the Soviet Union in Western Ukraine. My mom had to wait in line for like hours just to get milk. So I grew up in a very different world. I'm trying to set the stage here for why certain other things happened the way they did. Very, very different world. A world where there's not a lot of things that Americans get to enjoy. Let's put it that way. So, and then I repatriated because my parents realized like I needed to kind of get used to America. I need to figure things out here. And so I did that. Moved to the States, went to high school, Knoxville Catholic High School, and then got into the Naval Academy kind of on a dare with my dad. And then you know the story of him calling me an idiot if I don't go.
Listen to the whole thing.
Yeah. So ended up going to the Naval Academy, and I'm a computer nerd. So all I wanted to do was hack China, Russia primarily. Being a Ukrainian, I have certain feelings about Putin, and so I really wanted to get into like cyber warfare, information warfare, intel, whatever. I really wanted to get into that kind of world. But turns out when you go to a service academy, well, now things have changed a little bit as far as information warfare. But you traditionally, you need to go be a line officer. You need to go fight war, like kinetically. You know, that's what the goal is. And so I found out the hard way that no, I'd have to go be a surface warfare officer on a ship for 4 years before I can even potentially laterally transfer into something like that. So I decided, nope. That's not for me. Can't do it. But all my friends were, looking into the Marine Corps. They were also all the ones that liked going to the gym and lifting weights and stuff. And so I just got, we were on the same page with them on a lot of things. And so I decided to look into the whole Marine Corps thing, figured out that, hey, there's this whole, you can be a Marine Corps pilot, which, in high school, I didn't know any of this. And so I thought that was cool. And me and my roommates, all three of us decided we wanted to be Marines. So I was kind of in most of my good friends all decided that they wanted to be Marines or SEALs, and passed the flight whatever test. It's like a test to make sure. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. Well, is it called the same thing?
I think the ASTV is what it is for all naval flight services, aviation selection test battery. I know it very well because I failed it. So. I'm really familiar with it. Didn't study for it. It's a story for another day.
And you're like 10 times a better pilot than I ever was. So.
And then I waited to the last minute to take it. Anyways, yeah, that's what it is, I think. I don't know if they still use the same thing. I know the Army's changed since we went through and took it. They've got a new thing called the SIFT or whatever, but it's all the same shit. Yeah.
So did that whole thing, got it, and went to the basic school, did the Marine thing for a while. Played in the woods in the terrible cold, and then I went down to Pensacola, which I thought was paradise compared to the Quantico Highlands in the middle of the winter. That particular winter, there were multiple times we had to get evacuated because of how cold it was. It was crappy. But anyway, so we went over to in Pensacola. Actually right after the basic school. I'm piecing all this, my kind of background story together. So feel free to kind of like interject at any time, because a lot of your listeners, it might not make sense where I'm heading with this, but I've always kind of had this strong tie to Ukraine because I lived there for so long. I still speak the language fluently. That was my first language, actually. I actually speak Russian as well, because a lot of Ukrainians speak Russian because the Soviet, it was part of the Soviet Union for so many years. So I started, I don't know, there was like that tie that always existed there. And then on top of that, when I came to the States, I had this wonder, like, why is America so awesome? I mean, let's be honest, like, America's awesome. Like, we all know that, like, all the political crap going on and both sides hating each other, and then whatever. It always seems like there's doom and gloom in the news, but America's awesome, right? Roller coasters, skyscrapers, big cars. Like, it just seems like there's a lot to have and enjoy and experience. Really, the Katya's family, like, that's one of the first things they were saying. They're like, wow, we're experiencing like sensory overload.
Wow.
Like, America has that kind of effect on people that aren't used to this. And so I came here and I was like, why is it this way? Like, like, my brain could, like, and I remember coming here every single summer, visiting my grandparents, going to like Chuck E. Cheese, and yeah, they don't have that in Ukraine, by the way. Well, not now, they do probably something similar, but like back then they did not. And then coming back and telling my friends in Ukraine, like, yo, I was on a roller coaster and we did a loop, and they're just like, whoa, dude, like they couldn't believe it, right? And so that contrast, the difference between America and Ukraine was just so insane growing up, that I felt like, I think this is what motivated me. And I don't, this is how I interpret my own self going through life, is I wanted to figure out why. And so I ended up dating a Ukrainian girl that I met in Milan, Italy, on a trip after the basic school, on my way, en route to Pensacola. In between, we did a little bit of leave. And I realized that I needed to go visit her more often, and it's very difficult to do so when you're a flight student and you're making second lieutenant pay. And I was like, maybe now is the time to figure out why America's so wealthy. Maybe I can tap into some of that more money. Is it okay to make more money in the military? I was like, am I going to get like shit on? Are people going to hate me for wanting to do something outside of the military? But I didn't have a choice, right? Love was smacking me in the face. I needed to go see her. And also when the flights were expensive enough, but when I wanted to go see her, I wanted to have a good time, wanted to get a cool hotel room, go to some cool restaurants, experience things, not just sit around. So I started getting into like the credit card game. And dude, I have like over 20 credit cards at this point. I figured out every single bonus you could get. I think I was like almost platinum member in Delta, I just racking up points, buying dinners for all my friends, having them Venmo me back, whatever. I figured it out. But still, I was like, is it okay to make money outside of the military? I was like, I always felt strapped for cash because I tried to visit her all the time. And so I started looking up passive income and ways to make money, and stumbled into Robert Kiyosaki and Tim Ferriss. And so this is where this all comes together. I read I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week. And all of a sudden it like all came into focus. I was like, America is awesome because, well, for many reasons, but financially, the cornerstone, it seems like, of American wealth is real estate. Like the way the tax code is structured around building and industry. And I mean, if you think of real estate, every single house, every single building is a multi-layered cake of job opportunities. You need an electrician, you need a plumber sometimes, you need a property manager, you need somebody to mow your lawn, or you can do it yourself, or the neighborhood kid can do it, or you might need to get a new roof, you need to get property insurance, you're paying taxes on the property. There's so many layers to how real estate integrates into the American way of life and paying bills and providing for jobs, that it stimulates, by its existence and the way it's structured with our tax code, it stimulates our economy. It grows things, and that's why we're building skyscrapers and so on and so forth. And the tax code is similar in some ways to other countries, but very different in other ways. And I can talk about that later. But I decided then, I was like, I think real estate is the way. I was like, it might not be a get-rich-quick scheme, but it seems like a path very well followed, and it seems like every millionaire out there at least dabbles in real estate. Mm. So I decided to go full hog into that, and I invited my parents along, and we fast forward to today. I've bought multiple primary residences, some of which I've sold. I own a 56-unit apartment complex with my parents. I went full cycle on buying and then selling an 80-unit complex with some partners, a 71-pad mobile home park, about to close on the 31st on a 40-bed assisted living facility that's focused on memory care. It's a $4.4 million deal that just appraised at 5.6. Like that, me and my family created $1.2 million in equity just by buying the right thing at a discount. And I'm saying all that not because to like toot my own horn, but just because like after a lot of years, I finally kind of feel like I tapped into that wealth machine that America provides and is making available to Americans. And on the way, I also started ADPI, Active Duty Passive Income, which is an education company to teach people.
So let me stop you.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're good. We've already hit the intro. We already talked about you kind of doing Marine Corps and aviation thing, and aviation is not the focus of this episode. We want to kind of talk, veteran entrepreneurship and just pick the brain of a really smart dude. Sort of talked about, honestly, I don't think I knew that that's why you got into real estate, to be honest. I don't know if we had ever really talked about that before or not. So it's interesting hearing that. Yeah. That's really cool. Bless her for dating you and creating all this wealth, Wow. That's great, man. So what made you start ADPI? Like, I remember being overseas because you helped me get into real estate too. And this was before you had started ADPI. I had kind of just done the traditional, I've got this Roth IRA mutual fund thing and it is what it is, whatever. And I was in Afghanistan when I started on my first deal, thanks to you. And we closed, I think, right after I got back. Yep. And I still have that property today. It's actually doing very well. So obviously at that point I knew that you were into real estate, but I don't know if you had started ADPI or maybe it was very, very early on in the early stages. And you had kind of told me, I think you had a conversation with a trainer in a sauna. This is a wet dream you told me about. I can't really piece it all together. But.
Well, Andrew Fisher, if you're listening to this.
Yeah.
So me and my Naval Academy buddies, we were at the Greenbrier in West Virginia during the PGA Tour. And so my buddy's family, they own a restaurant and a couple of stores there at near the Greenbrier in Lewisburg and at the Greenbrier. And they had access to or membership at the club there, which is beautiful, beautiful area. I mean, like that place has been known to be frequented by many generations of presidents, and it's a wonderful place. Anyway, and we were sitting in the sauna there, and one of the guys that was there started asking us questions because I think he could tell that we were like military and whatever. We started talking. Turns out he was the trainer for Bubba Watson, and he had traveled all over the world, and he was doing some cool things. We just started talking, and then eventually we kind of became friends. My brother worked with him on a few things. He stepped into the entrepreneurship world and started a website for a famous YouTube golfer that went really well. And I'm trying to cut to basically there was a formative phone call where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do entrepreneurially in addition to real estate. And he's like, dude, why would you try to do something that you're not an expert at? You're doing real estate every single day. Why not focus this this business or side gig or online thing, whatever it is you want to do, have it be real estate related too? And I was like, well, and it clicked. I was like, that's perfect. I was like, I really would feel so much better just sharing the hard lessons that I'm learning in real estate, because I failed a lot of times. And there's all like the cliche terms like the school of hard knocks. Like I had to go through a bunch of crap, and I was like, why not show other military families how to not go through a lot of that stuff? Oh, and by the way, I get to scratch that itch and use some of my computer science background and make a website, and nerd out a little bit on like how to integrate things and make an online course. And next thing you know, it seemed like everybody started getting interested in real estate. Little did I know people were interested in it, but I think a lot of my military friends just felt like it was somewhat out of reach, or or it was, it was difficult because they're moving all the time, or whatever the reason. So that's why I started. Is I want it truly. The whole purpose of it was an education company, was to create educational resources and content to help others be able to do it faster, better than I did, and learn from my mistakes.
Awesome. So talk about kind of how that's obviously the origin story. Finding your team, piecing together guys like Eric and Tim and some of these other folks, and then fast forward to 2020, because you started at what, 2017, 2018, something like that?
2017, yeah.
Yeah. And you guys have grown significantly as an organization, and what all that you offer for the community, all that kind of stuff. Walk us through that process a little bit, what it looked like.
So the team building aspect has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done professionally. It was not something I really knew I was going to have to do. Honestly, you know what prepared me the best was parties at Baba's house. I'm serious, dude.
Fuck.
So for those that are listening, I lived with my grandparents for 3 years throughout high school.
Yeah, let's track back a little bit.
Yeah, I was by myself. I was a 15 through 18-year-old living with my grandparents that are the kindest human beings on the planet, but also kind of let me do whatever I wanted with zero supervision. God bless them. They're amazing. They're the best human beings in the world. And they let me live with them because my parents still, and the rest of my family remained in Ukraine until I graduated. And and so I thought that, I saw all these American movies when I was in Ukraine. I thought that partying was what you had to do. I thought that was the American thing, and also in Ukraine, the drinking age isn't exactly 21. So I didn't get that aspect of it. So I was like, oh, let's throw some parties at Baba, is babushka, that's a Ukrainian way for grandma. And so I was like, let's throw some parties at Baba's house. And the first one maybe had a handful of people, and then it started growing and growing. And then we started getting into all sorts of shenanigans. Every single weekend we'd come back to school on Monday and just spill the beans and tell everybody all the crazy stories. And everybody's like, well, we want to come next weekend. And it just got crazier and crazier, and to the point where I remember one time their entire street was just cars. All some of them hotboxing, some of them just God knows what people were doing in those cars, straight out of a movie. And then you just, walking out of their front door, you just see some people walking towards, some people walking away from the cars. And then you go to the backyard and there's a bonfire, somebody's swinging from whatever that they just made and from a tree. Somebody's tied to a tree for fun. Just fun. People doing keg stands, whatever, it was a fun time. And me walking around with a camera, also telling everybody to be quiet and quieter and keep it down, but also documenting and taking pictures of everything. But what I wanted to say was, I had to figure out how to bring people. I had this, for some reason, this thought. I was like, wait, why are football players over in this clique and soccer players over in this clique and, whatever clique over here and there. And I was like, let's just bring everybody together. Let's have a fun time. And I've always had that kind of feeling after that, was I just want to bring people together. I liked it, and I liked doing a thing together. And so when I started ADPI, it was hard for me to imagine. It wasn't even a thing. It wasn't even a thought that I would ever do this by myself. I was like, I want people coming along. I want to build a team. Let's do this together. And slowly but surely, more people started joining. And till now, we have 7 owners, close to 20 people in the core team on the education side. And then with our financial support services, it's in the dozens of people, just all a part of the organization one way or another. And we've stayed true to our mission, and that's education primarily. We've split it into 2 main tracks: single family residential real estate and commercial multifamily real estate. And then we We now own a life insurance brokerage. We own a real estate brokerage. We partnered on a mortgage company, so we own our own branch of a mortgage company. And soon we're going to be announcing a very exciting thing. So I'm going to kind of tease it out here because I cannot actually say anything yet. But a lot of our community has expressed interest. Everything we build, it's not because we wanted it, it's because the community wanted it. We're community driven. Whatever the community wants, we create to support them taking action and buying more pieces of America that cash flow and produce them passive income. The end. Like it's just a cycle. And a lot of them have expressed that, they would like a way to invest alongside us or with a lower barrier to entry. Maybe some of them don't have a down payment on a home. And so we have come up with a solution to kind of really open up the doors to that kind of a thing. And so that'll be announced here very shortly. And it's going to be one of the most exciting things we've announced yet. And yeah, so I kind of alluded to the team being the most rewarding thing to build. It has been a learning process. Everybody is from a different branch. It's a combination of service members and mil spouses, veterans, retired reservists. We're all together, very different personalities. And I think the hardest thing to do was to actually separate ourselves from some of that like military, because let's be honest, the military is very buddy. Foot stomp, I'll pass you on this one, to where I had to make it truly a capitalistic environment where fair is fair and accountability is accountability. You say you're going to do a thing for them, you have to do the thing. If you can't communicate ahead of time, there's no, total equality of opportunity, and your value is what you actually bring to the table, not some kind of potential energy. We've had to have a lot of interesting conversations with every single team member, breaking down each other's egos and really looking at what value we bring to the table, accepting that as a team. And I've had to have some really difficult conversations, but at the end of the day, it's been so cool seeing everybody become closer because of that. And so that's why that's been my the thing I'm most proud of with ADPI.
That's awesome, man. When is the announcement supposed to be made for this next big thing?
Pending legal. So we do it's not really up to us. We would love to set a date, and we've kind of been moving this. It's been a moving target, but there's a lot of setup for it required. In the next month or two.
Awesome. Really cool, man. You've always been sort of a mentor / icon, idol, whatever, from an entrepreneurial and business standpoint. So it's really cool to actually kind of hear you lay out versus what I've just been observing from the sideline and our occasional chats and stuff, what you guys have been doing. It's truly incredible. It's something you should be very proud of. Sort of transitioning from ADPI and real estate. Another thing that you're very passionate about is blockchain and NFTs. Curious on how you got into that. Obviously, we've kind of hit on the fact that you've always been very into computers and some of the kind of nerdy stuff. So this very much falls within that niche. But how did you start getting into that? I know you own quite a few NFTs as well, and you're very vocal on LinkedIn and Twitter and stuff with a particular form of blockchain. So talk to the community a little bit about kind of what you do in that space, why you're passionate about it, what you sort of see the future holding with regards to blockchain.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm angry at myself for not getting into it sooner. I don't think the way I view it is it's not an investment in the way that real estate is to me, that it'll replace the purpose of real estate in my financial future at all. It is, I'm looking at it more as a technology and what I can do with that technology, including how can I transact, invest, and benefit from real estate in a better way than ever before with fiat currency and the old way of doing things compared to what is possible now with blockchain. So I don't know why it took me so long to get into it. I think, but I'm also grateful it took me a while to get into it, because something that I actually have, my mom gave me a shirt for Christmas that says focus. I can run after squirrels and chase shiny objects like most entrepreneurs, and it's tough for me to stay focused. And so I push myself to be focused by talking about it a lot and by trying to manifest that into existence, that I'm a focused human being. And so I think it's good that I spent so much time focusing on ADPI and real estate, because if I did get distracted early on by blockchain, I probably wouldn't be where I am today. So I look at focus as, it's like compounding interest. You know, even if it's 1% or 2% over time, it's really going to start giving you that return on investment. And so that's definitely true with, I think, with anything. But anyway, but I finally did get into it, and I approached it not so much from at first I started approaching it from a tech and perspective and understanding the financial side of it. Like, why is this currency something that can be quote unquote trusted? Why do people believe in it in general? And so I read a book called, highly recommend it. And I did not really take economics in college, even like this, that wasn't my thing. So this was a huge learning opportunity for me, but it's called The Bitcoin Standard. And 90% of the book is not about Bitcoin. It has nothing to do with Bitcoin at all. The last 10%, he kind of like sums it all up. But this book was equally as aha moment, like epiphany moment happening to me as Rich Dad Poor Dad was. It rocked my world, because he went through in a very, I just listened to it on my commutes to work, but he explained the history of money, the different types of currencies that existed in the world, and he broke down the DNA of what a viable currency is, and then he showed historical examples of why certain currencies failed in the past and why certain currencies prevailed. And then he went through like things like Keynesian economics, which is basically, if you boil it down to its simplest form, it's, hey, if the more you spend, the better the economy, which my humble opinion is false. And he absolutely thrashes that concept there. I mean, in my opinion, that's why, right now there's massive inflation, because we printed 80% of our currency in the last, 6 months to 12 months, but the thought is, oh, well, now we just spend more and it'll fix itself. Negative. So it gets a little bit nerdy, but it's a very step-by-step approachable book. Honestly, like, I think it was masterfully done. You know how like you read Rich Dad Poor Dad and you're like, wow, this was through a story that he made like these difficult concepts so solid and easy to grasp. This book wasn't written through a story, but it was written in a very understandable way. Anyway, and it solidified to me that any cryptocurrency, if done correctly, and in particular Bitcoin in this case, that it had massive potential and to be a valuable thing, a thing of value. And transacting that value is what we're all trying to figure out. Like, is this something that I can use to transact value? And anyway, so I don't know. Do you want me to get into some of the technical stuff, or do you want me just to explain why I think it'll work well with real estate? What direction do you want me to take? Or do you want me to just jump right into NFTs and how the blockchain works with that?
No, I mean, whatever you're comfortable talking about. I think it's interesting to see how passionate you are about it. So I'm curious as to why you are so passionate about blockchain and why you're convinced that it is here to stay, and that it is the future.
Well, I
whether
think
that needs to be technical or a combination of the both. I mean, whatever you think. Just assume that it's, the majority of our audience is very much like, and for our audience, and we'll get into this in a little bit, and we've kind of been alluding to it on social media via Twitter and Instagram, that Brotallion is working on our own NFT project and release, and we hope to present that to the community at some time in Q3 of this year. But Markian has been sort of mentoring us through that process because it's something that's very new to Brett and I, and he's sort of expedited the learning curve for us. So he's been plugged in from the beginning on sort of pointing us in the right direction and telling us where to go as far as learning what we need to be doing, from building a community to education and all that kind of stuff. So assume that it's like you're talking to me and Brett, and we're basically have no idea about, we know what an NFT is. The average person's like, oh, it's this picture of an ape that some guy bought for $1 million. I don't know why, whatever, all these celebrities are doing it. But obviously there's a lot more to it, in particular with just blockchain in general and what can be accomplished with that.
Yeah. So blockchain is unique because it allows, well, most blockchains, they allow everybody to see everything that's going on in the ledger. I've heard it described as, you've ever seen like Jurassic Park where they're talking about how like that mosquito is trapped in amber?
Yep.
The way amber grows is like when the sap from a tree layers it on, a new layer gets created, but you can always see through the amber and you can see all the layers, and anything that is stuck in a layer, a bug or anything, it is captured forever. And obviously, I mean, I guess in real life, you can probably destroy that thing with a hammer, but in this case, it is cryptographically sealed and immutable. You cannot change it. And if you do, everybody will see that change. It is a ledger. It's like, imagine somebody, signing a roster or whatever. They're coming in like attendance. If everybody's writing it in pen on a white piece of paper, and for a fact that nobody has like whiteout or something, and somebody tried to change your name with that pen, they scribbled it out, you'd be able to see it. Same thing. Like, but this is because of cryptography. And it kind of clicked with me because I had to learn about simple cryptographic basics and how prime numbers work with each other. And you have, anyways, point is, it truly is immutable. And so the beautiful thing is it becomes trustless. And what that means is you don't have to trust anybody. And it assumes that nobody trusts anybody, which is, if you think about it, it's a beautiful thing. In our world, there's so much that we have to pay for and go through because we don't trust each other. And then we all have to decide on what kind of risk mitigation or how much do we want to spend on risk mitigation for that trust. Legal matters, title companies for cars and buying real estate. Like, we need a third party to guarantee that something was really somebody's before they sold it to us, right? Whereas this is a ledger that's, I'll be like, well, the last person to own that is Spencer Payne. There's no question at all. And that has never existed. There's never been a time that we've been able to have something, because if you want to change something, that you have to undo every single piece and go back. Like, it's impossible to do. And I'm not going to get into the actual, cryptography of it. But if you press the I believe, like you and me, we're going through flight school. How many times have somebody told you, like, just press the I believe button, man? Like, just press the button. Like, yeah, you may. I mean, I that tripped me up the most because I was like, well, no, I need to understand why when I do this thing, why does that thing move? Like, and a lot of times you did need to understand it, but like sometimes they were like, like, just, it's a whirly bird, man. It just flies. All right,
just fucking magic.
Yeah, just accept it. Press the I believe button. And so, if you press the I believe button on the fact that it's immutable, and a lot of people that get tripped up about it, they're like, well, I heard that it got hacked. No, it did not get hacked. People get hacked. When you are the sole custodian of a wallet, meaning you own a window of this ledger, of this blockchain, and you own the keys to that, yes, somebody can maybe hack your computer and get those keys. And there's ways to, like, I wrote mine down on a tablet, like, that's a piece of metal that's in a safe. Like, you can't go to Chase Bank and be like, oh, somebody stole my identity. No, you are 100% in charge of your own destiny here, and your money. So, I'm just saying, I guess ultimately my point is it requires a lot more decentralized responsibility. Like, you are responsible for managing your own money. You're responsible for managing your own keys. Think of it as like an email. You have your email address. Anybody can send you things to your email address, right? And you're not giving them your password. They can't read all your emails, but they know that they sent you an email. Same thing here. You have a private address and or private keys, and a public address. It's like an email address and a password. That's all it really is. So with NFTs, the reason why they're so powerful is because they take advantage of this immutable construct, this blockchain, and they allow you to create a thing on that blockchain, mint it, so to speak, like in time and space. Like, you on that blockchain, you create a thing, and you can tie it to a picture, you can tie it to a VIN number of a car, you can tie it to a residential address and be like, this thing is owned by this person, here's the transaction ID, right? And it's NFT stands for non-fungible token. The way to explain that is, like, if you have a dollar bill and I have a dollar bill, we can exchange those and it won't make any difference. Dollar bill is a dollar bill, right? We can go back and forth. With an NFT, you can't do that. It's non-fungible. A dollar is fungible. NFT isn't fungible. They are unique forever. One, like, it just be like, I can't trade my house with my neighbor because they're unique, And so that's the difference between a fungible token and a non-fungible token. And so I think a lot of times people have been trying to, you have baseball cards, right? I don't know if this is true, but turns out that a lot of like these super high collectible baseball cards, back in the day before internet, like, you might live in New York State and you might have like some Babe Ruth card and you think it's the only one in the world because the guy at the store at the pawn shop told you so. But you don't know that over in Kansas, there's another 10 of them, the people that those people at those pawn shops told you there's only one in the world too, right? Now there's an immutable way to prove that there's only one of this, or only 10,000 of this, or whatever. So the collectible world just evolved all of a sudden. Like, it just reached a whole new height. Not only that, it can be used again for anything. It can be a ticket to an event. It can be a membership pass to a club, right? Imagine if you had a membership pass to a club, but instead of you having to log on to a stupid system and you put in your credit card information and blah, 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 blah. What if you could hold that membership and you could pass it on to somebody else? It becomes much more tangible in that regard, as long as you can press the I believe button on the blockchain stuff. And then for NFT creators, the reason why it's such a great business model is that they now own, let's say you have 10,000 NFTs. When people transact those NFTs, you can charge a little bit of a commission in between, royalties. Imagine if you're a real estate agent and you owned the royalties or the commissions to 10,000 houses in the city without having to do anything, right? It's the same thing. Every single time somebody sells a house in between, if you took a slice of the pie, it becomes a very profitable business model. But also, as now the owner of those homes, you have to make them valuable. In this case, the NFT project, you have to make it valuable through the utility that you provide to the community. So, like, let's say it's a club. Let's say it's the Brotalion NFT. You guys will have a mission behind it. You guys will have, which people buy these things for identity. They will see a picture and they'll be like, they'll want that as their digital profile picture. I have one that I like because he holds a cigar and, I'm like, ooh, I see that. I'm like, that's digital version of, I identify with this NFT from an art perspective, but also it's tied to a community with a mission that I can stand behind. So people, like, all of a sudden a community and a mission has so much more to it than just writing a sentence somewhere. So when somebody sees you owning and showing that you own this NFT, it communicates so much about you as a person. And maybe it provides you a utility. Maybe you now have access to a special club. Maybe it's only digitally via Discord channel, or it's actually you're able to walk into a physical club somewhere in this world because you own that NFT, which is a thing now.
Yep.
Exclusivity is something that is so expensive in anything. If you can say, I'm one of 1,000 people that has this and can enter and have certain conversations, that makes it very valuable. So really, when people say NFTs are valuable more so for the community, not the art, is that they mean that they get to be a part of a very exclusive club, and they pick the club that they feel that they can, stand for that mission the most, and they can get the most value that matches what their value sets are the most. Somebody might want to be a part of a community that I don't know, that plants trees. There's one that they plant trees. Every single royalty that they make, they try to replant trees. Another one, they might contribute to a nonprofit, and then the team, they're like a mastermind, and they'll talk about how can they make the world better with that mission. And right now, in a world where everything's digital and we feel so, depression's on the rise, where we feel so disconnected from everything because of how connected we are through a phone. These communities are kind of bridging that gap now a little bit, I believe. And I think that's why it's so viral. I just rambled on for 15 minutes. I'm sorry.
Well, that was perfect, man. I really appreciate it. I think that pretty much provides a relatively easily understandable concept of what's going on with that stuff. And I'll take a couple minutes to do a shameless plug for us at Stallion and what we're trying to do with our NFT project. And this is still, I've got a document with words on it, and that's all that it is. Obviously, some of our artists are working behind the scenes on creating the NFTs and stuff, but Brett and I are still figuring out how we want to drive this. And much like you alluded to earlier with ADPI, we are community driven. That's all that we are about. Yeah, we sell, apparel and custom apparel and certain things, and that will probably always be a piece of what we do. But ultimately, everything that we try and do is for the community and the betterment of that. And by the community, I mean the Army aviation community. And we are trying to expand and to encapsulate all of mil aviation. But at our core, us being Army pilots, that is the community that we serve. And so with us trying to get into the NFT space, we want to try and provide a couple of things. You talked about unique experiences and stuff. One of which is just reconnecting with old squadron mates and meeting new ones. Like, we got a bunch of Army pilots in here that may have never even spoken with a naval aviator before, but now we've provided a Discord community where they're in here buying cool pilot NFTs and stuff, and they're talking and telling old flight stories and war stories or whatever, and sharing experiences. So you're connecting with old squadron mates, you're meeting new ones, you're sharing stories, you're bettering the community that way as far as growth and friendships. With that comes mentorship. So gaining access to mentorship from vetted aviators from a variety of backgrounds. One of the things we try to accomplish with the podcast is providing a forum for aviators from all different walks of life, whether it's civilian, military, both, fixed wing, helo, whatever, coming in and just telling their stories, because there's kids that are 12 years old that are going to go see Top Gun this summer, and they're like, wow, I want to go fucking do that. How do I do that? If only there was an educational platform where I could learn a little bit about it, or a community that I could join where I could be partnered up with, oh, hey, here's this F-18 FAC-A pilot that will mentor me and help me, whether it's with my academy process or just his technique on how he got through flight school or whatever. Mentorship is a big thing that we plan to try and incorporate into our NFT community. And then the last thing is, when you talked about nonprofits, obviously we push the Blue Skies Foundation very big, but with it being not just Army aviation specific, we also want to provide support for the Wingman Foundation, which is all Navy aviation services, and the Fallen Wing Foundation, if I'm saying that correctly, I believe is the Air Force's organization. Mm-hmm. What that looks like and how we do that is to be determined. There will most definitely be a percentage of each profit or whatever that goes to, probably evenly distributed between the three. And, really? Maybe we can plan events or something like that too, where you have to have an FT to get into it, and result of event feeds into those 501c3s or whatever. Again, we're very much early in the planning stages with how we plan to support the community, but it is very cool. It seems like unlimited potential with what you can do with it, especially as a community as tight-knit as this one starts to get involved and getting buy-in. I think probably one of the biggest bridges that we'll have to cross is the educational standpoint. And that's why I'm really pumped about this podcast, you taking your 15-minute rant or whatever to sort of break down, exactly what all this shit means, at least to enough to where somebody can, like you said, press the I believe button and, dive into potentially getting one of these things. Because I think the majority of people, especially in our community, I don't think that they're very well educated on what exactly truly happens within this space. I think it's just like we said earlier, oh, it's a picture of this ape that some dude made $1 million. Like, okay, well, sure, that is a thing, but there's a lot more that goes into it from that. So I really appreciate the synopsis on it. You kind of walking us through your story, from Pensacola to, business entrepreneur, real estate, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty fucking incredible, what you've been able to do in a mere 31 years. Is that about right? Yeah. So
unfortunately 31.
Goes by too fast. I want to
go back to high school.
I know. Typically we do this at the beginning. I thought it'd be kind of funny to add in on the end. We kind of just jumped right into your story, which I'm happy with. Obviously we've known each other for quite some time, so it was very easy to jump into conversation. But when we have folks that we only know through social media or have just chatted with via email, we do what's typically called table talk. And in the Army aviation community, we call table talk. It's like, all right, you're sitting at the table with your instructor pilot. He's going to grill you on whatever topics he wants to before you go fly. And so our table talk is usually just something to get the creative juices flowing and us to have a little bit of banter and fuck around a little bit before we actually get into the meat and potatoes and loosen everybody up. Obviously, we don't need to do that. I still think it would be kind of fun to tack it on at the end here. So I'm just going to shoot 3 or 4 questions at you. They should be pretty straightforward, except for maybe the last one. I wish Brett was here because he usually has really creative ones that are unique to either what's going on or the individual themselves. Mine are usually pretty straightforward. So the first one is, what's your favorite sports team?
The Vols.
Great answer.
No, but I mean, okay, so let me just give everybody a little bit of context.
There we go.
I grew up in Ukraine, okay? I'm not going to say, AC Milan or
Shevchenko, right? I mean,
so growing up, Shevchenko was my hero. I don't know if you guys remember like the tsunami of it was in the early 2000s that obliterated half of India or something. And there was this huge match where half the world was one team, half the other world was the other team. And it was Ronaldinho and Shevchenko. That's when I was like, yes, finally, maybe people will know that Ukraine isn't a part of Russia anymore. They still didn't up until now. But Shevchenko was awesome. Yeah, and he played for Inter Milan for many years, and he was their top scorer and striker for a while. But then moving to the States, obviously I had to learn what football was, and UT Vols were definitely those were the first football games I've ever went to, with my cousin and uncle, and then with you guys on some random weekends with Ed always cheering for the Gamecocks or whatever. But I'm not as big of a sports fan as if I grew up in the States, I imagine I would be, but I hope that's a good enough answer. UT Vols.
It works for me, man.
Yeah.
Next one. This doesn't have to be an all-time favorite band or artist or anything, but maybe even what song are you kind of jamming to right now? I know me personally, I'll find a song and I'll listen to it nonstop until I hate it again, and then maybe it might pop on years down the road. Oh, that was a great song. I forgot about that. Is there anything you're kind of listening to on repeat, or that's been maybe that's something that stuck with you, whether it's emotionally or you just think it's a good jam or whatever?
So, and back to the Ukraine thing, I guess, and it's just that timing right now. There's a band that I actually saw in LA that I've been listening to ever since I was cognizant of music, and it's called the Ocean of Elza, Okean Elza in Ukrainian, and it's an awesome band from Lviv, Western Ukraine, where I was born, and they're like this. It's kind of like Pearl Jam sometimes.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. He's got like a raspy voice, and just a really cool band. And I love listening to them. And so recently I've been on a kick for them because I've kind of had my country of my heritage
Yeah.
kind of like patriotism flowing through my veins kind of thing going on. So I've been listening. That's the kick I've been on recently. So yeah.
Cool. Favorite dive bar anywhere in the world that you've been?
Lorelei's, Sneads Ferry, North Carolina.
Wow, that took zero thoughts before you spit that out. I don't even think I've heard of that, so I may need to hear some stories, whether that's offline or.
There's a lot of great bars that I've been to.
Yeah.
I like to partake in the drinking of beverages. And there's actually some really good Pensacola ones. Like, gosh, I'll remember it in a second. But in North Carolina, I was there for 6 months at the RAG, or the Fleet Replenishment Squadron, FRS, going from Pensacola to learning how to fly 53s. And this is middle of nowhere north. I mean, right, if anybody knows where like Cherry Point, Lejeune, like there's Cherry Point, then south of that there's Lejeune, and then south of that on New River, that's where I went to learn how to fly 53s. There's a little town called Sneads Ferry, and that's where I lived in a little 1-bedroom apartment for 6 months. That's where Katya came first after we got married. And anyway, and there was this one dive bar that was, it is the diviest dive bar of all time. Couple of pool tables. There's a corner where they had some random, whoever degenerate was the DJ, and they were open, I think 24/7, because like people had the idea was that you stayed there till the morning to eat breakfast, and the lights, they didn't have normal lights. They had Christmas lights with solo, like every light was stuck into a solo cup. So that was the lighting system.
Oh yeah, I've seen that before. Okay.
But goodness, they had some of the best bacon wrapped scallops, and just also a bunch of deep fried, awesome drunk food.
What was the name of this place again?
Lorelei's. I don't even know how to spell it, honestly.
I'm just gonna Google Sneads Ferry dive bar and see what the fuck comes up.
Yeah, that'll definitely come up.
I've got to. Well, have you met Kyle Kilroy? I can't remember if you met him before or not. His twin brother is.
I met both of them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Todd is a JAG officer over there. So if he hasn't heard of it, I'll have to.
He's definitely heard.
Check it out. Yeah.
He's definitely heard of it. That place, like, there's this road that goes by it, and there's like this just ditch all along the road. And I remember driving by there one night and just seeing this poor girl just walking home, just face planting into the ditch. That's the kind of place this place is. Like, it's just you just get trashed.
I love it.
And people take pool there so seriously. Like, it is disgusting competition at that place.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right, man. Last one for you, and perhaps the most challenging today is: when was the last time you shit yourself?
Probably about a year ago running.
This is something.
No, I'm not even kidding.
I know you're not. I
think I had too much coffee that morning or something, and I went on a run in our neighborhood, and I just came back with like this into the house, like just like squeaking through, and Katya just gives me this stare. She's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "Just shut up! I need to go to the bathroom." Yeah. Definitely threw that underwear away and just whatever.
It happens, man. Colin's got a great story of when he about shit himself on a run and didn't quite make it back to the house either. We'll save it for another day. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on.
Hey, we can do this again sometime when Brett can make it or something, whatever.
Yeah,
you guys want to do, love like before the launch of the NFT, we can talk.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd love to have you back on. We can do more of a deep dive on that stuff. Really appreciate you sharing your wisdom, your story, everything with the community. Again, I know you're super busy. For the guys listening, go check them out. Active Duty Passive. Well, I'll let you go ahead and plug your stuff. Have your podcast, website, social media, all that stuff.
I'm trying to invigorate our Instagram, although hasn't been our main jam. I know Instagram is your all's big thing and that it's thriving. But yeah, anything Active Duty Passive Income, like Facebook /Active Duty Passive Income, Instagram /Active Duty Passive Income, activedutypassiveincome.com. There, we've got everything there in the menu. Like if you're looking for resources on education, we've got that. You know, if you want to connect with maybe me on a freedom call, we do like this round robin with the team where if anybody just wants to talk to us for 15, 30 minutes, just figure out what the next financial step with real estate should be. We do that. Just talk to a guy who's looking to jump into multifamily real estate investing. So got him on, you know, going to send him over our masterclass to get started. So, and I mean, yeah. And then all of our contact info is on our about page, whatever. The website's probably the best place, but yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, good catching up with you. And until next time, which is hopefully in St. Petersburg, Florida, sometime in the near future.
Yep. Getting pre-approved right now.
My man.